You mentioned rankings several times in the call, and MBA-dom is filled with rankings. There are more rankings for, I think, for business school applicants than there are for law school applicants, for medical school applicants, or for any other category. What are the strengths and weaknesses of rankings as a whole in your view? And what about some of the specific rankings that you report on? Because you don't report on all, from what I could see.
Right, how long have you got? I mean, first of all, the strengths, I mean, they're incredibly useful tool in terms of the data that sits within them. So as long as you understand the limitations of that data, they can be hugely useful. You can compare schools, look deeper within a ranking. So to an extent, they're a useful source of something that applicants can use when considering different schools. But the obvious limitation is that you can't just look at a ranking and just take that as gospel. These are journalistic models that are designed to be different so that one publication stands out from another. So if someone's launching a new ranking, they're going to find a methodology that's going to throw up a different result to a ranking that's already out there. So you have to look into the methodologies. And so there lies some of the flaws with rankings. You know, how far do you trust how schools are putting these methodologies together? So we can start with the Financial Times. Financial Times gives a huge weight to an alumni survey. How can you really trust data that has such a bias as an alumni answering questions about their school? I can't see any alumni who would want to damage their own brand by saying that the school they went to was awful, and suddenly it drops out of the Financial Times rankings and they're left with something on their CV that doesn't look as good as it was before after they spent about 100 grand on that. So that can be an issue. You know, I've spoken with people at the FT, been on a panel and spoke about that, and they have lots of measures. The FT is the only rankings provider that I know of that sends in, I think it's KPMG who do an audit of business schools to make sure the data they're collecting is correct. So, you know, it's my favorite ranking. It's great, it's global, but this alumni survey is a bit of a concern. And then the more general point, and this is how the industry might change, is the real focus on salary data. So across all rankings, really, the impetus is on jobs data, how much are alumni earning, a lot of weight is given to that. And so that's a problem in terms of if a business school is located in a country when wages are lower, then their graduates are going to earn less. Some schools have even complained that it detracts from recruiting women because women are paid less in certain industries. There are measures against this, but it's all pretty murky. And also the fact that business school isn't about just earning big salaries as much as it might have been in the past. So I think it's 25% of incoming students nowadays want to start their own business, and that's not going to pay you a big salary. How can the ranking look at that? People are interested in social impact, working for non-profits. It's not all about getting jobs in finance firms and consulting firms anymore. So this is a bit of a problem for rankings, and there are changes that are coming with regards to that. And also we've seen how rankings can really be exploited or you know, misguided. There's been a lot of scandals. Schools have been kicked out of rankings. How can you trust a ranking that's launched that I think it's, you know, a few of the top ranked Financial Times schools aren't featured in? So I'm talking about the Wall Street Journal Times Higher Education ranking that launched, but big name schools decided not to take part in it because rankings, participating in rankings takes a lot of resources from schools. They were tired of doing that. They said, we're going to sit this one out. So that ranking needs a big disclaimer to say, by the way, these are our results, but there's all these schools that are missing from it. So as someone who is reading that ranking, you need to be aware of all the background information and all the methodology and everything that goes into it. So they can be misleading and they need to be looked at with these things in mind. Even today, yesterday, there was a new report out from
Yeah,
the
I saw it
association.
actually just before I came on your site.
Yeah, so exactly. I think we headlined something like business schools say MBA rankings can't be trusted. So it's quite
Right.
sensational. But yeah, new data from the Association of MBAs, which surveyed business schools. I think it's 1 in 10 said that rankings reflected the true performance of their MBA programs. Now, that's probably a lot of business schools who aren't well ranked. But there is something to be said that a ranking alone doesn't show everything about a program. We're working with a school now on a campaign for them who have a program that's ranked #1 in the world, but they're attracting the wrong kind of students for them. They want to attract different kinds of students. GMAT calls them, GMAT segments the market, prospective students. And so they're attracting a lot of people that GMAT refers to as respect seekers, so people interested in this ranking, but they actually want to attract people who are global strivers, who want to work internationally, or impactful innovators, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. And they can't do that with ranking alone because it doesn't communicate everything about their program. So they're looking to share their stories. So rankings can be great. It can also be a bit of a curse, both for business schools and candidates. So lots of slightly less than positive, slightly less than strengths. But I mean, without the rankings, I'd have a lot less to talk about. So another strength.
Well, I've for years said that the best thing about the rankings is the data that's in them. The rankings themselves, I think that the emphasis that applicants sometimes put on them reflects a laziness on their part. Because no ranking, I don't care what you do to it, is going to reflect the values, interests, needs, and priorities of individual applicants. It's impossible. That they have to figure out. So the applicants need to kind of take responsibility and use the data that they contain to make their own rankings because